Daddy, Daddy Cool, Daddy Cool. What's up, guys? Welcome back for yet another episode of the Off Grid podcast. This episode, I thoroughly enjoyed the process of creating this one. I travelled across to the Cotswolds to meet the guest, to meet Kenton, and we had such a great conversation. I'm also playing around with different ideas around the podcast. So this one, I did it in person, which I really enjoyed. It's also a longer conversation. It just went on naturally, and I thought, let's give it a go. So I hope that you guys see that depth in the conversation that we had as well. Now, this episode, of course, is with Kenton Cool, and Kenton has summited Everest more times than any other non-Sherpa climber in history. He's recently just completed his 20th summit of the mountain. He's a high-altitude guide, mountaineer, and the man responsible for leading some of the world's most recognized names like Ranulph Fiennes and Fogle to the top of the world. In this conversation, we talk about the unglamorous early years that made Kenton the best in the world at what he does, ego on Everest and why it gets people killed, an unexpected emotional breakdown he had during a neurolinguistic programming session, why English capitalist culture doesn't sit well with him, and what it takes to lead the likes of Ranulph Fiennes and Fogle up the highest mountain on Earth. We get into all sorts in this conversation, including my Vipassana 10-day silent meditation retreat, and we talk a lot about dealing with our emotions, the struggles of it, and we just really got into it. So I hope you guys love it. You'll also see at different points, because we were filming outdoors, there are some like helicopters and airplanes that sometimes fly overhead, of which Kenton was able to identify the model of each one, which was quite entertaining. So yeah, on with the podcast. Hope you guys absolutely love this one. Let's do this thing. Kenton, welcome to the Off Grid podcast.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. And I suppose, our location today is quite poignant. Well, not poignant. Here we are on a campsite. There's a climbing wall here. There's fire pits. There's a sauna through there and cold plunge in the woods. I mean, it's not quite off grid, but it's got that feel about it.
We got the whole lot. Yeah. We're on to a winner already.
Yeah, deep in the Cotswolds.
Yeah. Speaking of winners, 20 times Everest.
Bit silly, isn't it?
What a segue.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, does it sort of feel as badass as it sounds? 20 times off Everest?
Not really. I've always said that numbers of summits are somewhat irrelevant. It doesn't really matter if it's 15 summits, 18 summits, 20 summits, 225 summits. I mean, my reputation is not necessarily built on numbers of summits, but it's clients, getting clients up and down the mountain. I mean, if the audience don't know, I'm a full mountain guide, IFMGA mountain guide, but I found a niche on Everest. And that's my USP. I'm Mr. Everest when it comes to guiding, I suppose. So, do 20 summits feel badass? Not really. Something I'm quite proud of, don't get me wrong. I think it's quite cool. But you could argue that records on mountains beyond a first ascent, i.e. who made the first ascent of the mountain. Everest, it's Hilary and Tenzing, under the leadership of Sir John Hunt and the teams around that. Or maybe the first ascent of a route on a mountain. Other than that, records on mountains, because mountains change, conditions change. And I think that's one of the reasons why sort of fastest known times have become, FKTs have become de rigueur, because they're less of a record, more of a sort of homage, I suppose, to records in a way, but it's a fastest known time if you're running up and down a mountain. And there were a couple of runners this year setting, it's hard to move away from the term record, isn't it? But setting fastest known times on the mountains. But you have a long-winded answer, isn't it? No, I don't think 20 summits is badass. Yeah, especially if you consider Kami Rita's now on 32, Badawa's on 31. My right-hand man, Dorji Gelgin, he's on 25. And these boys are the legends. The Sherpas. They do kick ass.
Do you think that
they're amazing?
Is there like pressure with like to do cool things when your surname is cool? Like, is there genuine pressure there?
Well, no, not really. I mean, the audience might find this vaguely interesting. So the cool, and it is Cool, is a German translation. If you go back four or five generations, the family were Germanic. And my grandfather, born in London, grew up in London, was working for the fire service at the outbreak of the Second World War. And if you excuse the pun, it wasn't that cool having a German name of Kuhl.
Yeah.
So it got changed by default to cool. It's direct translation. And growing up at school, it was rubbish. You can imagine kind of low grade bullying, but you think you're cool and look at you with stupid. But now I work in the service industry. Anything that sets you apart, and if somebody's looking for an Everest guy, who's that guy with a stupid name? So I don't think you need to live up to the names. It's certainly not at my age. I mean, I'm quite some 52. I think I've gone beyond having to live up to my name.
Okay. And leading up to age 30, I saw that when you first summited Everest, you were like 30 or 31, was it?
Something like that. 2004. I was born in 73. So yeah, I would have been 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
That actually surprised me because I thought that you would have gone younger than that. So I was interested because I feel like a lot of the people listening will be curious as to like how you started. And I was wondering what you did in that decade before summiting Everest.
I was a climbing bum.
What led you up to that point before 30?
So yeah, I was really lucky. I was at Leeds University studying geology because I didn't quite know what else to study, and I set myself up quite nicely to get a job like in the oil industry or something like that. So I studied, or I honed in on things like paleogeography, paleontology, paleoecology, paleoclimate. So all the things that would have been perfect for oil exploration. In reality, I didn't do any of that. I came out of Leeds. I was already climbing by this stage, already done my first Himalayan expedition. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. So how old am I now? Like, I don't know, 21, 22. It just did not have a clue. And I simply got a job in a climbing shop in London. So first of all, it was Snow and Rock on High Street, Kensington. So I spent some time with them. Just getting a bit of cash together, finding my feet, trying to work out what to do. Went away on another expedition to Nepal. So my first trip to Nepal. So this is 95, I think, 94 or 95. I'd already previously been to Pakistan. And then started working for Cotswold Outdoor. Another sort of outdoor retailer. And just working on a shop floor. The money's, as you would expect, pretty rubbish. I was living with my parents out in Uxbridge. I was cycling in every day. So putting in like 35 miles a day on the push bike along the A40. If anybody knows the A40, it was like a battleground. But I used to love it. It was combat cycling. I got punched once. Somebody threw a full Coke can at me, kicking panels in the side of cars that cut me up. It was full on.
Wow.
And that's before you even got to work. And then I forgot even what the question was. And then I decided after a while I was sick of London. I wasn't really enjoying London. It's really difficult to save any money when you've got pretty much a hand-to-mouth job. And I did an IRATA course, which is industrial roped access, because a buddy of mine that I used to climb with, we call it on the ropes. He worked on the ropes, and the money just seemed so much better. And you are essentially freelance, so you can pick and choose the work you wanted to do. And I thought this would work well around my climbing. So pretty much throughout my 20s, and I moved to Sheffield. So throughout my 20s, I was essentially working on building sites or working at height, doing anything where the access is difficult, swinging around on buildings and ropes and stuff like that. Earning enough money to then go on the next expedition. And it was a roller coaster throughout my 20s of expedition after expedition. And when not on expedition, doing as much rock climbing as I could around the UK. And that was essentially my 30s. I was a climbing bum. I rented a room. I didn't own a car. Just climbing. I had a big stack of climbing kit. and very little else. And it got to a stage, I come back from India, so this would be early 2000s now. And I remember it vividly. I got back from India, and at Heathrow Airport, my parents lived not that far from Heathrow Airport, and I needed, I forget exactly, let's say £2.20 on the bus, because my parents always used to refuse to come and get me from Heathrow. I needed £2.20 on the bus, and I didn't have it. I did not have £2.20 to my name. I couldn't go to the cash machine and get it out. So I was going around the arrivals lounge at Heathrow asking people for money. And I was looking at my kit, and I had a haul bag, which is like a ballistic nylon, huge duffel bag, and another duffel bag. I've got a portaledge with me. I've got thousands of pounds worth of hardware and clothing, and I'm meant to be this acclaimed climber, alpinist, Himalayan climber. And I don't even have £2.20 to my name. And this is nuts. And that was the point that I thought, well, if I'm on the front cover of climbing magazines when they used to exist. And if I'm this acclaimed climber, why am I penniless? And what can I do about it? And that's when I started to look at guiding.
Mm-hmm.
How can I? And initially it was, okay, well, maybe I can go to the Himalayas and work for somebody like Jaggy Globe, who I started my guided career with, a Sheffield-based company. They will pay me to go to the Himalayas, and then I can stay in the Himalayas and do my own stuff. So I can continue to do the Irata, swinging around the ropes that high, get paid for that. Get paid, my airfare would be covered. You get a little bit of money, not much now, leading treks to Everest Base Camp and things. And then I can do my own stuff. So that's where the guiding career started. And that didn't start until I think my first guided trip was 2000. So how old would I have been there? 27, 28. But the years building up to that, I was a climbing man. That's all I wanted to do. Earn money to go climbing.
In that time, did it feel like were... Okay.
I mean, honestly, it'd be like being a surfer. It's like, okay, where's the next amazing looking mountain? Like a surfer would think, where's the next break? Constantly honing your craft, going to really cool places with really cool people, meeting really cool people, climbing first ascents, i.e., the mountain's never been climbed, or a new route, or hard repeats. It's like Nirvana.
I'm curious about that, because I was completely broke about a year ago.
I'm still broke. Partly because of school fees these days.
Yeah, different reasons. But I felt like a loser. Like
Yeah, but what were you rich in?
Sorry?
What were you rich in?
Well, I had great people around me. But I honestly felt like in that moment, I was like crying, and I was just so upset because I was like, somehow along the way, I felt like I got it wrong. And
because you're not earning money.
Yeah.
But I mean, money. I mean, we all know this. The audience will know this. Sort of. Yes, you need a certain amount of money to make stuff happen. I.e., you need to put food on the table. You need, a roof over your head. You need to be able to put food on the table. But some of my clients are uber wealthy, like high net worth, ultra high net worth individuals. And they know, arguably no happier than you and me. I mean, the happiest I reckon I've been was dirt bumming it in the Utah desert. Knowing that when I come back from this trip, I've got no money again. I'm probably going to have to move out of my room in Sheffield because I can't afford the rent unless the landlord is going to be generous and let me. It's a shared house. It's not even as if I've rented the whole house. It's literally a room.
Yeah.
And that's probably the happiest I've been. No materialistic wealth whatsoever.
Because I know you felt with living part of your life in Nepal over the last 2 decades that you're somewhat at conflict with Western capitalist society.
Oh, I'm massively at conflict with it. Despite the fact I live in the Cotswolds, I'm still going to private school. I've got a lovely house just up the road from here. I have subscribed to a little bit, Gordon Gekko, Gordon Gekko in Wall Street, the Hollywood movie. his tagline was "Greed is good." I'm not saying that greed is good, but it'd be hypocritical for me to say that I'm not part of capitalist society. But show me somebody that really is content in our society, not honestly content. They're very hard to say. I mean, okay, if you're like a multi gazillionaire, maybe. But the most content people I've ever seen in the world are, living hand to mouth subsistence level farmers, or some of my Sherpa friends that have, pretty much nothing, and they seem pretty happy with life, and they've got nothing. So, yeah, I mean, it saddens me a little bit to hear you say that you would have thought that you were a loser because you didn't have money, because you had a tribe, you had good people around you. You were doing stuff, I'm guessing, that you wanted to do. You find ways to do that. You don't have to spend a fortune on a venture. You need a little bit of cash. But we're lucky here in the West. I mean, we generally have some way, not everybody, but generally we got something we can fall back on. Like you were saying, you were staying with your parents this weekend. I'm not saying that you live with your parents all the time, because I know you've got a houseboat. But we can fall back into our tribe, whether it's family or whether it's friends, and we can find shelter. I forget. I'm going to forget the name. Was it the five?
Maslow's hierarchy.
Exactly. We can find shelter. We live in the UK, so we have running water. We're generally warm when we need to be, and stuff like that. And food is expensive these days, but again, there's ways and means that you can put that together. I mean, what more do you need if you've got that tribe around you? I think we're fed a sack of lies, thinking that we need the next generation of car, or we need to upgrade our iPhone, or whatever it is to keep up with the Joneses, because you look at the Joneses and they're going to be no more content than you and I.
So do you have an inner tension because you're kind of part of it, right?
Oh my God, I'm constantly conflicted.
What is the confliction in your mind? So let's say you've just been on expedition, you've been living in Nepal for a period of months, and you're kind of assimilated to that culture and way of life, and then you come back, and now you're in England, and you're back in the lovely Cotswolds, and what is going through your mind at that time?
But first and foremost is how lucky we are here. And we have to think, first of all, it's amazing that we were ever conceived and born, and we're actually on this planet. And I think we have to be grateful for that every single day. And then we have to be arguably even more grateful that we're born into, in the UK. And I know it's really easy to think to ourselves, but would it be really nice to live in northern Italy, where the climate actually have seasons, and we could go skiing or rock climbing, or we can look at beautiful girls on the beach, or whatever it is that floats our boat. But we're not born in a Mumbai slum. We're not born in a super remote village in Pakistan or somewhere, where actually, child mortality is through the roof. Malnutrition is a real thing. Education is incredibly hard to come by. Here in the Cotswolds, it's not. I keep needing to tell my children this, and tell myself this on a regular basis. This is not the real world. This is a little bubble of prosperity and money, and it's not reality. And when you go on these expeditions, you do see another way of life. Okay, you might not see it in the Khumbu region, where I spend a lot of time, because that's comparatively affluent, certainly for Nepalese standards. But you do see it in Kathmandu. You do see the roadside beggars, the deformed children who may have been deliberately deformed to enhance their ability to beg. You see malnutrition. You see another way of life. You see this huge disparity between the haves and have-not. So yeah, I do come back and as I say, first and foremost, I think how lucky I am that we have a lovely family unit here, and we live in this wonderful part of not only the UK but the world. And then I often think how unfair the world is. And I'm not religious, and this might really upset. Perhaps we shouldn't go there, but this might upset some of the listeners. But I find it really hard sometimes to think that if there is a God, the God would allow such disparity between the haves and the haves not. I mean, you got like Elon Musk, I think he's like the world's richest man currently.
Yeah, he just became a trillionaire.
Yeah, I mean, are you kidding me? Yeah. Yeah, you can go, I mean, not just in India or Nepal or Pakistan, but, you can see poverty on the streets of the US. You see poverty on the streets of London or Manchester or Gloucester just up the road here. Yet you have a trillionaire. I mean, how does that work? I mean, I don't even know how many noughts there are. Can he actually spend that much money?
Probably not.
I mean, it's just how? But then you come back to the Cotswolds, and this is the issue with it, and this is the issue with me. You spend 3 or 4 days back in the UK, and that, oh, how lucky am I, fades, and how unfair fades, and you just drop back into everyday life, and this becomes once again normality until I go away again. And I think I'm very lucky that I can go away on such a regular basis, because that helps me reset where I am. But the conflict's quite often there. It really is. And I think it's really important just to have these discussions, and the audience might say, yeah, it's all well and good to talk about it, but what are you actually doing about it? That would be a fair criticism. I do try to put my energies into some things, but I mean, I don't know where to begin. So
what would you say to them if they were to ask that to you?
Well, I mean, I try. I mean, all the charities I work with are Nepalese focused charities, for instance. I mean, I'm ambassador for the Gurkha Welfare Trust. I fundraise quite heavily for the Juniper Fund. DCI Foundation in Nepal. I'm fundraising for helping Nepal's children and things like this. So
yeah, I've done stuff.
Yeah, I try. Can I do more? Well, yeah, of course. Everybody can do a little bit more, can't they? It's just really upsetting sometimes. Those that potentially have the power to do things are often the ones, broad brushstroke, but often the ones that do the least. Maybe that's why they are rich. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe that's a correlation.
Yeah, because they're maybe too self-serving. And this is really broad brushstrokes. Because I'm sure Elon Musk does a huge amount of philanthropic work, and I know what's his name, Mr. Microsoft. He churns.
Bill Gates.
Bezos.
Yeah.
I mean, they do churn quite a bit of their wealth into foundations and charities. So.
And you spent so much of your life now in Nepal that it must kind of feel like it's almost like a second home, like kind of maybe part of you. And
yeah, very much so. And it panders to the ego as well. Because I'm well recognised there.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Are you like a bit of a celeb over there?
A little bit.
What's that like? Because I was a celeb for a bit in India just because I'm freakishly tall and I hated it.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, we all have an ego, don't we? I mean, it was Ryan Halliday wrote the book Ego is the Enemy, but we all have an ego. And egos like being pampered. And I went to Nepal during lockdown with the family, and I was doing some work out there, and they came out to meet me. And my wife were saying, your whole demeanor has changed over here. And I went, well, what do you mean? She goes, and excuse me, it's a bit of a swear word. And she goes, you're walking around dick first. I'm like, what? And she's like, you're standing taller, your hips are kind of like forward. You're walking not with a swagger, but you're walking with purpose and confidence. Because, in the UK, I'm to an extent Mr. Nobody, but if I walk around Tamal, which is a tourist area of Kathmandu, I get recognised quite a lot by some of the locals. I know some of the shop owners. I know a lot of the hotel staff, and sort of trekking tourists and climbers sometimes recognise me and stop in the street for selfies. And it's somewhere where I have a degree of mastery over my craft, and it feels good. I mean, I hate to say it, but it feels good. And it builds a confidence. And I've always said this, that confidence is different from ego. Confidence is like trust in ourselves, and confidence can unlock doorways to a superpower if it's used in the right way. So yeah, I mean, I love being in the pool. And especially when I get in the Khumbu, which is like the trek to base camp, I can walk around, Namche Bazaar, which is essentially the Sherpa capital. I know the cafe owners, and I get welcomed back to the lodges, and people know that I try to do good there, and I promote some of the sort of community activists there, like Mingma or Pemba that owns Sherpa Barista Cafe. Was these guys are doing really cool stuff within the community, and and they don't have to, yet they are. They're giving back, and to be able to support those guys by having a social media profile. We were talking about him earlier. Spencer Matthews. I don't know how many millions of followers he has. I don't have that, but you can still use social media, which is a good and an evil platform at the same time. But if you use it for good things, and I can help these people in a minor way by promoting what they're doing, and they appreciate that, and it's just a good place to be. It feels good. There's a community that means well to people that they know, the people that they trust, to newcomers and people that they don't know. And it's something that we don't necessarily see in this country. And I think that's, we started this by talking about capitalist society, didn't we? And I think that's one of the fundamental flaws of this capitalist society, is that it's more based on individual growth. How can we get richer? How can we become more materialistically wealthy, rather than looking at the collective, rather than looking at the tribe, rather than looking at the community? And again, I realize that this isn't the case for everywhere, and there are great communities in the UK that come together. We saw it during COVID, didn't we? It happened during the Blitz. Communities coming together, pulling individual to gain to one side for the common good. But we see that a lot in mountainous communities. I use that term specifically, mountainous communities, because you see it in the Andes. You would have seen it in the European Alps before the mountain communities became uber rich. If you go back, say, 200 years to, say, Zermatt or Chamonix, or Verbier or Courchevel, these really glitzy ski resorts these days. 200 years ago, they would have been subsistence level farms. And we're seeing the same development to a degree in Nepal. But I think the people in mountainous regions, life is so hard there that they've got to have a community and a collective. Otherwise, life would be too hard to exist as individuals. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I saw that on my first trip to Pakistan when I was 19 years old. And I've been on record numerous times saying this. I fell in love with mountain people age 19 when I came off a mountain. We were climbing in Pakistan. We'd just done a new route. We thought it was a new mountain, but we had been beaten to it by Pat Littlejohn at the International School of Mountaineering, unbeknown to us at the time. And we came off the back side of the mountain. So we climbed up one side, come off the back side of the mountain, which we weren't expecting that we would have to do, but we did. We'd run out of gas to melt snow into water, and we were pretty much out of food. And we dropped down into a high pasture, a summer pasture. And it was three of us, Al Powell, myself, and Simon Grayson. And as we came into the pasture, which is essentially just like a big field, there's a figure, like kind of running towards us, holding a stick. Jesus Christ, top off here. Yeah, and it was a lad. I was 19. The other two was a couple of years older than me. And it was a lad, probably similar sort of age. Now I'm guessing, I don't know, maybe it's 16, 17, something like that. And he was a goat herder, sheep herder. He couldn't speak a word of English. We can't speak a word of Urdu. But it was like evening time. We've got nowhere to nowhere to spend the night. I mean, we had a tent with us, but we've got nowhere really to spend the night. And through sign language, we got invited into his yurt. And this lad had nothing. He's up there, I don't know how long. He's up there like all summer, looking after these animals. And he shared everything with us. Now, literally, I mean, we said earlier, I'm not religious, but he broke bread with us. And he shared it all. He was making us tea and flatbreads and everything else. And Al Powell was a vegan at the time. And he made this like rancid tea using like butter fat and like some rancid milk, and it was quite hot. And I remember saying to Al, he was a staunch vegan and a hunt sab and everything. And like, you going to drink that? And Al looked at me and goes, how can I not drink it? How can I refuse this? And, I'm 19 years old. I mean, I grew up in Uxbridge, not the most glamorous of places. I had quite a sheltered background. My dad was unemployed for a lot of my childhood. So it's not as if I came from this uber wealthy place. Yet there was this kid, similar sort of age to me, willing to welcome us essentially into his home, share everything, big smile on his face, quizzical about what we're doing and where we come from. And I just thought this was epic. It didn't matter what religion or color or creed or society we're from. We were all the same. And then you come back to the UK, it's like, really?
Sometimes it hurts.
Oh my God, doesn't it just?
Yeah.
It's embarrassing sometimes to see the bigotry that exists. And I think to myself, if this kid had arrived at London Heathrow Airport, not knowing what the hell was going on, what sort of reception would he get?
Probably be stood there on his own for a while.
Yeah. Just,
Damn.
yeah. It's embarrassing sometimes. Like you say, it's hurtful.
What do you think people miss if they're thinking about going travelling, but they don't for whatever reason? Like money, worried that they won't get a job when they get back, whatever it is. What do you think they miss by not going travelling?
Eyes are opened. Because we are all the same. We're human beings. We're all, come down from the same. And forgive me, I didn't really do biology and stuff like that. But Homo sapien or wherever. We are all essentially the same. We're the same species. Yet we are so culturally, religiously different. And I think if people want a good understanding of how to tolerate and understand and get a meaning of what other people stand for, different ways of life, you've got to immerse yourself in it a little bit. You've got to go and see what other people do. No, it's, especially if you want to become a leader of any description, you've got to have a broad understanding, about people. What's important to people? I mean, just use religion as, just stay away from politics and religion, but we go down a religion thing.
You seem to be going there quite a
I
bit.
know. Should really try not to. But look at all the unrest that's been caused by religion over the centuries, over the millennia, where one religious sect is trying to force their beliefs on somebody else because they think that they are right and somebody else is wrong. Well, why don't you take a step back and in fact you realize that actually those other people aren't necessarily wrong. They might be praying to the same God, but they're just doing it in a different way. Just because they're doing it a different way doesn't necessarily make them wrong and us right. Let's go and have a conversation. Let's have a discussion. Let's immerse ourselves in what they're doing to get an understanding of what's important to them. And then maybe we can understand them better. And once we understand what the other person stands for, then we can have a dialogue and find some form of medium ground where we can both happily coexist. But I really believe that we can only do that by going out to the big wide world and having an understanding about what it is that's important to other people. Added to that, we live in this beautiful country, and I barely scratched the surface of what's on our doorstep here. So adventure doesn't necessarily mean traveling here, there, and everywhere. You can just travel in your own world. But there's some amazing stuff out there. In terms of like the geography, and you don't have to travel to the Himalayas. You can travel to the European Alps. You can travel to North America. Maybe that's one of the issues with America. People mock Americans because only 30% of Americans have a passport. But just look at the diversity that there is in the US in terms of landscape, in terms of climbing, adventure, and the different rivers, and the different states, and Alaska, and like Texas or Utah, and deserts, and it's just amazing. But essentially, it's one culture, it's one people, and I think you've got to go out there and dip your toe into it. It might not be for you, but that's okay. You've got to experiment. In the same way that you do anything in life. You do your GCSEs. My daughter just finished her GCSEs. I don't know if she took like 11 GCSEs or 10 GCSEs, whatever it is. And she's like, thank God, because I can now bore down on the 3 A levels that I'm really interested in. Why did we have to do 10 GCSEs? It's like, sweetheart, you're trying to find what you're into. You're experimenting. You're seeing what works for you. And some things will work and some things won't work. But you've got to try these things. And only through trying do you find out, as much as what is for you as what's not for you. And traveling gives us that. And you don't need to travel in an expensive way. You can hitchhike, you can walk, you can cycle, you can interrail. If you're lucky enough, you can afford airfares. You get yourself out to Southeast Asia or the Himalayas or Africa or wherever. That's the way we learn. That's the way we develop and understand. And I sometimes think, not getting too political, that if our leadership team opened their eyes a little bit more, they too would realise that and have a better understanding about tolerance and what others find important.
Mm-hmm.
I told you it gets ranty sometimes. But I said
it's
on
good.
the environment. We haven't even touched upon this.
Yeah, we haven't touched that one, not yet, at least. But you've just got back from your 20th summit, and obviously in the last 2 decades of climbing Everest nearly every year since that point, it's changed a lot. And the last season across the news was that it was one of the busiest days on records on that mountain. I think 274 people in one day summited Everest. Is Everest becoming too dangerous to climb?
No. No. In a nutshell, no, it's not. So 274 people. I mean, it's not actually the absolute record. The absolute was 300 and something. 274 is a record on one day from one side because the Chinese side was shut this year. But there were record numbers of summits, 1,000 and something summits in total. spread over, I don't know how many days. Everest is a big mountain and has the ability to absorb a lot of people. I know that sounds big mountain, highest mountain in the world, but the only 2 days that bottlenecks can occur is summit day and a day before summit day. So the day up to camp 4 from camp 3. And there was lots of pictures in the press this year of like a huge snake of people. But it's not necessarily hard to avoid the queues. We all knew that 19, 20, 21 were going to be, one of those days was going to be a colossal day because there'd been delays getting the mountain open because there was a big serac, a hanging ice cliff that barred the way. So there was a delay getting all the logistics in place. Then there was some weather we had to contend with. A lot of people waiting at base camp, becoming impatient. The writing was on the wall for one of those days was going to be really big. So we summited on the 22nd. There were 70 summits, which sounds like a lot, but for Everest, that's not a big deal. You got to have 120 plus on Everest for it to start to feel that. As a mountain guide, you're going to have to start working some magic to make sure that clients aren't queuing because you don't want to queue on that mountain. So, I don't think it's getting more dangerous. I mean, the Nepalese are never going to cap numbers. And the reason why they're never going to cap numbers is because it's a form of foreign revenue for them. Each foreign climber is paying $15,000 now just in a peak fee to be there.
But they've got that new regulation coming in, right? So they're trying to get people to do a 7,000 meter summit
peak, yeah.
Before Everest?
Before Everest, yeah. So it'd be really interesting to see what happens with that. I mean, I don't think it's going to come into... so that's been mooted within Parliament. And the whole idea behind this, I think it's a solid idea. So Everest is not getting more dangerous. I don't think really is overcrowded. You've got to be careful with how you approach things, but I don't think it's dangerously overcrowded yet. And we've got to bear in mind 1,000 summits on Everest this year. People are like, Jesus Christ, 1,000 summits on Everest. Mont Blanc gets something like 30,000 summits a year.
Wow.
Matterhorn gets 15, 16,000 summits a year. Eiger gets like 7,000 or 8,000 summits a year. Yeah, the Matterhorn's a really busy mountain, a really stressful mountain from a mountain guy's perspective. There might be 300 people on it, and that's way more stressful than a summit day on Everest. So we got to keep things a little bit into perspective. I think what the Nepalese government is trying to do is the right thing, because where the danger arises with having lots of people on a summit day on Everest is when there is inexperience, people that are out of their depth with what they are doing. And I don't necessarily think that is the role of the Nepalese government to deal with, because the Nepalese government is a relatively new government. They only came into power September, October time last year. And they're dealing with much bigger things than a bunch of rich Westerners or rich foreign clients coming to Everest, and perhaps a couple of them die a year. And I'm not being flippant about this. A couple of them might die every year, like we saw this year, and a couple of Sherpas might die. I think there were 6 deaths on Everest this year. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but that's a fact of life. On average, on Everest, we receive somewhere between 4 and 8 deaths a year. Meanwhile, you probably see anywhere between 100 to 200 deaths in the Mont Blanc Massif every year. But the Nepalese government are dealing with a lack of education system, a lack of healthcare system, a lack of any social welfare, malnutrition. They're dealing with really big shit. Sorry, I swear.
Go for it, it's fine.
And to deal with a bunch of Westerners or a bunch of foreigners on Everest, it's not really their bag. They've got other stuff to deal with. It should be the industry. The industry of which I am part of needs to self-regulate. The industry needs to have more due diligence into the people that they are taking to Everest. If we can raise the average standard of competence of the individuals going to Everest, the clients that is, then I think that Everest will, without a shadow of a doubt, become a safer place. The average competence, talent of your Sherpa guides has increased through the roof since I started working on there. They've gone from Sherpa porters to Sherpa guides. They're really competent. They can fix the lines. They really know how to look after. Not all of them, but a lot of them. They really know how to look after foreign clients. They carry these humongous loads. Sherpas are generally, you go back, they're like a race of traders. I mean, because a Sherpa is a caste. It's almost like a tribe. So they traditionally used to be traders between Tibet, China, India, and Nepal. So they have this yes culture. So they very rarely will say no to a client. It's just not in their ideology to do that. So they do occasionally get themselves into trouble when there's a forceful client just saying, we need to do this, we need to keep moving, we need, I paid you to go to the summit. Things are changing. Sherpas are becoming more confident in saying no to clients, which I think is a good thing. The Nepalese outfitters are getting better year on year on year, but the industry needs to self-regulate. It shouldn't be down to the government. But what the government has mooted is that by making it a rule that foreign climbers need to have climbed the 7,000 meter peak beforehand to gain some of that experience. Then they added a caveat in the pool. So quite clever, really, because then there's going to be monetary spend again. Bit of a pain in the backside, because you could go down to Argentina and climb out on Calgary. They're trying to do the right thing. Whether that rule's not in place yet, I don't think will come into being for next year, 27. Whether it comes into being for 28, we'll wait and see. It won't reduce the numbers. It would just mean that people who have to go to Nepal to gain a little bit more experience before they go there. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
I saw a bit of that when I was in Nepal. So I was there for 3 months and I went to the Langtang region.
Oh, it's lovely there.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then we went over to Pokhara and then went to the fishtail mountain there.
Yeah, Meshkuri.
Yeah, we finished in Gokyo Ri.
Which is some of the best views of Everest.
Yeah, it was awesome. And part of the reason we went was because we didn't want to go to Everest Base Camp.
Yeah.
So it's basically on the same route, and then you get to Kenton Cool and it kind of forks off, and one's to Gokyo Ri, the other's to Everest Base Camp. Yeah. And the people going to Everest Base Camp in our 3 months of trekking in Nepal were like the least experienced we'd ever seen. Like, some people were completely overweight and were like doing this as a big, massive charity challenge.
Which is fantastic. I mean, that's an adventure for that individual. But I mean, I know where this is going to go on.
Yeah, others were like, we saw a group of guys who couldn't take the altitude at 3,000 meters, so they were just lying on donkeys and just being taken up. And it was just like, wow, this is the hardest climb. Like, you're going to Everest Base Camp, but they were the least experienced climbers we'd ever seen. And it felt like, because it's got the word Everest in, like the ego gets attached to it and they want to be able to say that they've done it.
Yeah, and it's accessible. It is a fantastic trek. I mean, there's no two ways about it. It's fabulous. But it's busy, and it's busy for a reason, because it is Everest. Like you say, it's the tagline, I've been to Everest. It's super accessible because you can chop it to fixed wing to Lukla, or you could chop it straight to Namche. Really well maintained paths. You can do it, if you chop it back, you can do it in less than 2 weeks door to door. But if you want to see the real Nepal, go up towards Gokyo and Dole, or go into Langtang, or go into Mustang, or the Manaslu area. The Annapurnas actually get more footfall than the Khumbu region, believe it or not. But it's not as well developed as the Khumbu area. And you get all sorts of people, because that's one of the great things about adventures, one of the great things about mountaineering and trekking. It's open to everybody. There's very little rules and regulations in place, and long may that continue. The only thing I would say is one would hope that the individual is educated enough, either by their operator or by themselves, to realize that if you're grossly overweight and unfit, you're going to have a really tough time of it. So put a little bit of effort in, do a bit of research into what it is that one is about to do some training, perhaps lose a little bit of weight, use this as the impetus to clean up one's lifestyle, and then go, rather than lean. I mean, my God. I mean, when you see people on the backs of some of those horses going to Everest Base Camp, you're just thinking, what are you doing? I mean, A, it looks really dangerous and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And B, I mean, the poor horses. And this is a modern thing, they never used to be around 10, 15 years ago. And everybody's an individual. I'm not going to cast judgment on those, on the horses, because maybe they're having a wicked time and they're finding themselves, all the things that you perhaps would have done in Langtang and what I find on big mountains and things like this. But it's certainly not the way that I'd want to do it. The sense of achievement, I think, would definitely be somewhat diluted down. And why are people doing these things? Are they doing it for the achievement, i.e., I've been to Everest Base Camp, or are they doing it for the experience of, I went trekking? Doesn't matter where you trek, really. And then, the best views, I think, of Everest available to a trekker is Gokyo.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
That's what everyone said. We were the only ones at the top at like 11 a.m.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It's brilliant. And if anybody's listening out there, the best time to actually do it, I think, you got to be a little bit careful, is evening time. Because what happens in the morning, if you're up there for sunrise, the sun comes up behind Everest and it burns out the view, burns out the pictures. Because let's face it, we all love the Airbus A500, A400 rather, the military transport. God, it's quite low, huh?
Wow, but is there RAF base?
Yeah, out Bryce Norton.
Okay.
So the best time to do is evening time. So if you're there in the autumn, that's when the evenings are generally clearer because the clouds bubble up. So a piece of free advice, anybody's trekking there, if you're trekking in the autumn time, try to get up Gokyo-ri or what's the one that everybody does?
It's the Everest 3 Ways Pass, which is pretty cool.
but above Gokyo, suffering from high altitude amnesia. Kalapatar. So Kalapatar is just outside Everest Base Camp, which is a very similar view, but it's not quite as expansive. If they're in the autumn time, go up in the evening.
Do you see those dudes? There was like a group of ex-UK veterans, and they went London, climbed Everest, back to London in 7 days.
Oh, the ex-special forces do. So Garth Miller, one of the Through Dark guys, the MP. So I met them when they were on their way up at Camp 2 last year.
How is that even possible?
So they were so it's quite difficult to pin down exactly why it worked. So we use the same sort of logistical operator, Furtenbacher Ventures, the Austrian guy. He does a really great job. And Lucas is a huge advocate of pre-acclimatization. So the way pre-acclimatization works, a couple of ways you can do it, is one, you use essentially what they call it, a hypoxic tent. So in the build up to your trip, be it Kilimanjaro, trekking somewhere, this is open to anybody, you put a tent over your bed and it expels the oxygen. I think what it does, it's got this device somehow, and I think they use nitrogen to dispel oxygen. So you end up sleeping in a low oxygen environment. And what this does is helps the body, it kind of tricks the body into producing more hemoglobin, more red blood cells, which is the oxygen carrying conduit within your blood. In addition to this, they use this cutting-edge technology, again, sort of kind of developed by Lucas Furkenbach, called xenon gas. So they breathed xenon gas. So they went to Frankfurt, I think it was, and you spend 2 hours breathing the, is it a noble gas, xenon? I think it's a noble gas.
I have no
I'm
idea.
trying to think back to chemistry. It's on the far right-hand end of the periodic table. So I think it's xenon gas. Now, the interesting thing about this, and we're not going to get too much into science because I feel like I'm on very thin ice, excuse the pun. So xenon gas is banned in competition. So, if you use xenon gas and we're competing in the Olympics,
it's a performance-enhancing drug. Okay.
Because, again, this promotes hemoglobin production. And apparently it's completely harmless. So these dudes last year, they used xenon gas. They used the hypoxic system. They used copious amounts of oxygen, starting, I believe, at base camp on a high flow rate. Added to the fact that they're all hard as nails because they're all ex-special forces. Which one of those 4 parameters worked for them? I mean, it's incredible. But it does come back a little bit to what we said earlier. Are you looking for an achievement or an experience? Because they flew from London Heathrow, landed in Kathmandu, which is, as you know, a cosmopolitan, vibrant city steeped in culture and history and colour. It's all there. It's brilliant to explore and go down the little nooks and crannies. It's got a great tourist area, but get into some of the suburbs, and you've got these little walkways, and it's just brilliant. They landed in Kathmandu, spent 2 hours or 3 hours in Kathmandu. They were on a chopper straight to base camp. They spent about 2 hours in base camp, got checked over by a doctor straight on the mountainside. Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, summit, back down to base camp, straight back home. 6 days, 22 hours or something.
That just doesn't sound fun.
Doesn't sound fun to me either. But this is it.
Maybe that's not what they were trying to do, though. Maybe they weren't trying to have fun.
But why do we do these things? In my mind, in my opinion, if you're going to break a record, and I've already put my view about records on mountain, but if you want to break a record, surely there's got to be a modicum of fun in what you're doing. Adventure for me is all about, experiencing new things. Not all of it's going to be fun. Some of it's going to be like really hard work, especially when it goes like south and goes tits up and you find yourself in some godforsaken suburb and you don't have a map, or you're lost, or you're hungry, or you're cold, or you're tired, or you're wet, or there's always bits, but that aren't fun in the moment. But essentially, these things are meant to be fun. And I'm not sure how much fun climbing Everest 7 days door to door would be. But more power to them. That's if that's their sense of adventure, embrace it, run with it, do it. I wasn't too sure how much fun they were having when I saw them. I'm trying to hook up with Garth, actually, who was one of the brains behind it, or Garth Miller's BA pilot. So he doesn't live that far away from here. We keep trying to hook up for lunch. So, because I've not seen him since Camp 2 on Everest. I'd be fascinated to hear the download.
That'd be a good debrief.
Yeah. There's a film about it, which I think premiered. I say a film, it's not like a big feature-length film. It's like one of these like sort of small film things. It'd be fascinating to see what the film looks like.
You've spoken about what climbing is in your life, and you've described climbing as incredibly selfish, the pursuit of this idiotic sport that gives you nothing but self-gratification, but in the same breath, it gives you a lust for life.
I'll put it well.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's incredibly selfish. Now, I've got a beautiful family, and climbing takes me away from the family. Now, I think as individuals, we have to be happy with who we are and what we do in order to then be able to project happiness onto others. And what I mean by that is, if I was a super frustrated individual because I couldn't climb, then I'd probably be a really crap dad, or a worse dad than I already am, or like a really crap husband. Because I'd just be grouchy and upset and scratchy the whole time. But climbing is quite an individual thing, and I know we form these bonds over the rope, and if you go rock climbing, there's generally 2, sometimes 3 of you, and so there is teamwork in there. But if I go rock climbing for the day, I go for self-gratification. I go because it makes me feel good. I have fun. It just happens that climbing takes quite a long time, especially if you go to the Himalayas. You could be gone for weeks. So I do think it is quite selfish. And the rewards are self-gratifying. That felt good for me. Yes, I summited Everest. God, that feels good. It doesn't feel necessarily good for my wife. Other than I'm an Everest guide and it puts food on the table. Because it's one of the ways I earn my money. Or if you go rock climbing, you climb a hard route. You're high-fiving your partner at the top. I mean, my daughter doesn't feel great because I just went and climbed my first E5 in like 2 or 3 years, does she? She's like, "Oh, Daddy, how was climbing?" "Yeah, great. Yeah, I kind of wish you were here today to like play some backgammon with." She loves playing backgammon. But I wasn't there. So, it's kind of selfish and thinking, at the same time, it gets you outdoors. It pushes yourself. You get yourself into these scenarios and you're like, oh my God, I might have overstepped the mark here. Especially if you're rock climbing and, any one of you can be on the sharp end of the rope, at each time, you got to extract yourself from this scenario that you find in. It's humbling. You form bonds with those that you climb with. If you're climbing overseas, you get to go to these really cool places. Even rock climbing, you go to Klimnos in Greece, or you go to Utah in the US, or you go to South Africa, or you can go to like Turkey rock climbing. So that adventure we were talking about, going to see these different cultures and people and places, and it's just brilliant. I love travel, but I always think, for me, travel needs purpose, and climbing gives me that purpose. And that's where the lust for life comes from. I think there's so much we can learn about ourselves and about others through the sport, the art of climbing. Unlocking puzzles, perseverance. And you can't do that problem to start with, so you got to try and it's still not working. So what do you need to do to get it done? Well, you're going to have to go away and get stronger, or stretch more if you can't reach a foothold, or you're there to support your friend because he or she's trying a hard route, and you might not be climbing well one day and then climbing really well the next day. So when you're not climbing well, you just got to show up for your mate, for your buddy, show support. You're having a crap day, but it doesn't mean that you can't be there for somebody else. And if you're having a crap day, well, if you've got a good tribe and network, they'll be supporting you. And you learn that not every day is a win. Sometimes you just get slapped down for no real reason, or your foot slips off the foothold, or you break a hold, or whatever it is. There's so many learnings about the lows and the highs of life through climbing. And that's where the lust for life comes from. And it's really enjoyable.
You're clearly like trying to understand yourself as well, because I know I was watching some conversations you had 3 years ago, and you said one of the things that you were trying to work on at that time was understanding yourself, connecting better to your feelings. And
it's not going very well.
This is what I wanted to ask you. Now we're like 3 years later on. One of the things you said back then was that you wanted to try and be kinder in the world. What's the internal work that you've done in recent years?
I think being more transparent. I'm an incredibly emotional guy. I mean, it's amazing that I've not started crying yet on this podcast. I mean, it doesn't take much. I mean, I wear emotions on my sleeve. At the same time, I'm really rubbish at dealing or processing emotion. So I put emotion in a cupboard. Bad stuff happens in relationships, or maybe the way that I conduct myself, or death. I've experienced a lot of death in life, and I just throw it into a cupboard and hope to Christ that the cupboard never opens without processing the grief or the emotion or even the elation. Now, my wife always says, I'm emotionally stunted. And I've never known how to deal with it. And my real concern is that one day the lock to my wardrobe, my cupboard filled with unprocessed stuff from even when I was really young, is going to come undone, and I'm going to be carried away by a tsunami of deep emotional turmoil that is going to be totally overwhelming. So what I've tried to do is be more open, be more transparent, to share more. And oddly, I find that really hard to do with those closest to me. And the person arguably closest to me is my wife. But then, she's an exec coach and she's brilliant at asking questions. And maybe that's why I don't open up to her. I don't really know. But I do have a small number of people that I find very easy to open up with and I can share. And I'm never looking for advice or judgment. And I try not to offer judgment and advice when people share with me. Just be there and listen and to be present. Offer advice perhaps if it's given, but I don't know if I have the skill set, or perhaps I'm not being through the same thing that this person is dealing with. So who am I to be able to offer advice and vice versa? But just trying to be more open and to process more. And how is it going? Well, it's going pretty poorly.
Okay.
Because I shy away from it. It's easier to not deal with it. I mean, I was at an event in London on Wednesday, and I got really emotionally invested. It was an art gallery. And we were somehow connecting. It was a great event, by the way. And we were sort of connecting art and mountains and all together, and it was beautifully compared. I broke down in tears. We were talking about the environment because I was getting so emotionally involved with it. And I've done nothing with that. I've just packed it up and put it in the closet. And that's a small thing. And it started with the girl comparing how do you deal with grief. That was opening gambit. I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? And I struggle with it all. I think I'm becoming marginally better, but I'm 52 years old, and it's kind of hard to teach. I'm not grandma to suck eggs. Is that a phrase?
That is a phrase, yeah.
Teaching grandma to suck eggs.
Not quite a grandma.
Teaching dogs new tricks or whatever. For 52 years of my life, I've dealt with emotional turmoil by putting it in the cupboard, and it's hard to change. It's hard to change.
What is it that's stopping for you? Because in the last couple of years, you described a tsunami earlier. It hit me.
Yeah.
Like I just had this one night where I just started talking about something that had happened in my childhood, and then it just went boom. And it was insane. Like I couldn't stop it. I was crying for 5 hours, like a boy, like uncontrollably. And after it, I felt amazing.
Yeah.
But before it, I didn't know it was there. So what do you think is the barrier? Because it sounds like you're describing a tsunami. So like, it's there, right? Like there's something in the cupboard because you know that there's a cupboard. But how do you think you can... Is courage the right word? The courage to open it up?
No, I think it is the right word. I mean, you say you didn't know it was there, but it clearly was there. And I wonder, if you fast forward. Well, no, let's try and reframe that. So I experience that on a semi-regular basis. unfortunately, it's happened quite a bit on stage. With Q&A's, a bit like this, and vulnerability starts coming through. And on Wednesday, somebody came up to me and goes, "That was amazing. I just want to thank you for being vulnerable." I'm like, oh, well, that's a bit embarrassing, really. And she's like, "No, it's beautiful. And we need to do it more. Both men and women and everybody else. It would be really interesting to see, if that's happened once to you, whether it becomes more of a regular thing. Because I think I have those little glimpses of what happened to you on a semi-regular basis. So I constantly know it's in the background because it might happen every couple of months. And I can generally tell that it's building up. So on Wednesday night in London, from that first question about grief, I'm like, it's going to happen at some stage. Okay. I can just feel it welling up inside.
What are you feeling?
Untamed emotion. I knew that. I knew that I kind of wanted to take, because we had a pre-event briefing call. So I had a bit of an idea about where the conversation might go. And from the outset, with that question, how, talk to me about grief. I could. It's not a tightness. That's a really good question, actually. What did I feel? Just a little bit of internal turmoil. I could feel, to start with, a little bit of annoyance that question was so raw so early. I immediately felt vulnerability. It took me back to various incidents where, something had happened, I've had people die in my arms, and I pulled people off fixed lines whose heads kind of exploded, and, I had near misses myself, and I've been to more funerals than I have weddings, and all these sorts of things, which I've never really dealt with. And it immediately takes you back to that point, like you said, in your childhood. Something just triggered you back to an event in your childhood. And I don't know if you've done any NLP. That's a classic thing of they use something called a timeline, and they try to unpick emotional turmoil by taking you back on a timeline and trying to pinpoint something that's happened to the individual, often in childhood, an event that's not been properly processed. And my wife's done NLP. She's an NLP or whatever practitioner, like extreme practitioner or like ultimate practitioner.
Okay. Is that neuro-linguistic programming?
Exactly that. Yeah. And this was years ago, and she said, right, she was doing the end of, like, I don't know, an 8-week training session thing, to become an NLP expert practitioner or whatever. And you had to bring along a guinea pig, a victim, call them what you like. So say your girlfriend was doing it, she might say to you, right, we all need to bring somebody along, because at the end of the NLP training course thing, you have to test your skills, and you will be teamed up with one of the other people there, and then you go away and have a coffee and you talk about, like, some issues that you have, and then the soon-to-be NLP practitioner will use some of their like practices that they've learned to try to deal with what you have. And even before we get there, Jazz is like, right, so there's only one person is going to be able to deal with you, because she knows what I'm like. So you've got to, I forget what her name was, this Indian girl. So when you get teamed up, just make sure you're with that girl over there, because everybody else is going to really struggle with it. Anyway, so we go and we have a coffee, and we talk about, I forget what I'm like. Yeah, I'm really struggling with blah, blah, blah. So, we come down, and she did the timeline thing, and we took it back. Anyway, fast forward to the end of the like session, exam, whatever you call it. Here comes the little helicopter, look. Little Robinson R22.
There's all sorts coming over.
Yeah.
You know your military aviation.
No, that's not military. So that's an R44, forward season Robinson. Anyway, so it comes to the end of the exam, or the assessment. It's not an assessment. Everybody's gone home. Jazz is just sat in the corner. I'm still one-on-one with this poor girl who doesn't know what the hell has hit her. I mean, floods of tears. It's just like the Pandora's box has been opened, and the examiner's come across, and she's trying to put everything back in the box and like restore it all, and just like trying to get me in a situation. Oh my God, where I can like leave. You know, it's an hour after it's all, and the main girl is going, oh my God, you know, there's like a Zumba class coming in here next. We've got to clear out, and the poor Indian goes like, there's a shit, what's happened here? And we get on the bus, and I did what you did. I completely just dissolved on the bus with all this emotion and not being able to deal with it, and again, yeah, poor Jazz, you know, and just in floods of tears on the bus. It's like emotional relief. Felt amazing afterwards. And like, what the hell happened? Yeah, and to this, I mean, I can't remember what we were talking about. You know, I've never dealt with that. That just gets like stuffed back into the thing. And then I could pull myself together and have a little bit of a word with myself, because I'm quite often on stage. I mean, God, I was at this big conference once, and the three of us were being, so I was there, like the chief exec of Tesla Europe was there. We were being interviewed, and some other woman from MediaCom was there. We're being interviewed by Kate, you know, on a big BBC thingy. You know, and I dissolve on stage. Like literally, it's just like the gates are open again, and you know, you've got to pull yourself together. So like 3 minutes later, you know, dab my eyes down with a handkerchief, pull myself together, a few deep breaths, back into it. Dealt with, put that back in the cupboard, and it's so unproductive. I mean, I'm really interested in this. Is going off a bit of a tangent. You know, a friend of mine dabbles in, I can never pronounce it properly. You know, the
ayahuasca.
Yeah, the psychedelic drug. Because it, you know, a bit like LSD, you know, it unlocks pathways that perhaps we need to investigate. And my understanding, but I've never tried it, is, you know, it can be really traumatic at the time, but certainly this friend of mine, it has helped him deal with so much personal trauma by just unlocking different pathways and not even putting band-aids on things, but actually dealing with what the trauma was in the first place. Because, you know, maybe he didn't understand what the trigger was, in the same way that maybe you didn't understand what the trigger was.
I've done work since. I've done silent meditation retreats, like complete silence for 10 days, and I did it in Pokhara.
Yeah, so a friend of mine, she goes to Nepal, and she does, I don't, maybe has she done 10 days? I think like 7-8 days.
Okay.
And she, Sequoia Schmidt, and she's like, you've got to try it. I'm like, Sequoia, I could never do that. And she goes, I thought the same.
You can always do the first day and quit.
And she keeps going back.
Yeah.
She keeps going back.
I mean, I did it twice. Yeah, I did it again in England, and it was just...
Where did you go in the UK?
Norfolk.
Oh.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Yeah.
Much nicer than the one in Pokhara.
Oh, really?
Yeah, hot showers, and yeah, it was quite nice. But yeah, I kind of return back to it, you know? I'll put myself back in there and be like, okay, let's...
And what happens during the day?
So it's 10 hours of meditation a day, complete silence, and there's no words, there's no reading, writing, speaking, no human communication, so no eye contact, nothing. You're in utter isolation. And essentially what's happening to your brain over a period of 10 days is you're becoming deeper and deeper into the conscious mind, and blood is literally sinking into the brain. And as you go deeper, you gain access to the unconscious mind. You become conscious of thoughts that are no longer in the periphery. They're like at your core. And it reveals truths. But I think, you know, you say how you wouldn't be able to do it. Everyone is petrified before they go and do it. Because what's the scariest thing? It's like being left alone with yourself for 10 days.
Yeah.
How petrifying is that?
It's terrifying. I mean, I always say that, you know, one of the reasons why, No, I don't go solo traveling or solo climbing is because I get bored in my own company very, very quickly.
And this is amazing how, you've got this man who, from the outside, I think people would look at you similar to probably how I saw you just on Instagram and things, which is, whoa, 20 summits of Everest, like, this guy's unstoppable. Like, whoa, But then you can't bring yourself to spend 10 days of yourself.
Yeah, that's a very good point. 10 days is a long time though, isn't it? Jesus. And then what happens when you sort of come back into everyday life? I mean, can you still access the subconscious, or does that fade?
It fades. You have to keep the practice up, right?
Yeah.
So it's essentially a meditation boot camp that gives you the tools for you to then use in later life. If you don't use those tools and you stop meditating, then it does fade.
Yeah.
But the lessons are still there, for sure. You still remember your experience. And people who do keep up will do 2 hours of meditation every day, and then once a year they'll go back and do another 10 days. But it's an experience, particularly on the first time, 'cause it's just like, what the hell is going on?
Love the way you threw self-strain to 10 days. And all that. I mean, can you do 48 hours? Is there like a...
Look, you can leave. For someone like yourself, if you're scared, then definitely know that everyone else there is also really scared, and that's not like a unique thing.
What about those cats that come back for the second, third, fourth time? I mean, I bet they're not scared of it. I bet they're sort of going
No,
in
you are.
like old hands.
No, I went back in for a second time, and it's like, you're scared again because you're like, oh, I wonder what's going to come up this time. Like, there's a sense of unknown, right?
So I suppose by unlocking the subconscious, you are opening those pathways.
Yeah.
So, maybe I'm looking for a too quick a fix.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to kind of science it, then yeah, that's what you're doing. You're essentially like opening up parts of the brain. But this is deeply spiritual. It's Eastern. It's belief. It's about spirituality.
Yeah.
It's not about the science and how is this going to work in 48 hours and boom, come out there.
But what happens when you get to? I mean, I'm being a little bit flippant now. But what happens when you get like 3 days in and you're like, oh, damn, I need to, something really important you forgot to do, or suddenly you have this complete clarity on something. I've got to note that down. Can you go and plead with them? Just write this bit down. Okay. Go make a list.
Yeah, what, like a to-do list? Like,
yeah.
I forgot to write in the chat.
Yeah.
No, probably something more profound.
But yeah, I mean, you might have these. Yeah, you might unlock the universe. Yeah, I'm being a bit flippant.
No, not at all. No, that's essentially it. It's like realizing.
How do you remember that at the end of like a week later?
You don't remember it. It's not about memory or intellect or logic or brain, mind. It's about spirit and inner consciousness. Like, when you go like that, you look at your hands, it's like, well, this is weird. Like, those are my hands. And like, when you have this thought in your mind and you're like, whoa, God, that's a bloody dark thought. Who thought of that? Yeah. It's like, well, now you're doing subject object. Like, well, someone thought it, but it wasn't you. So who was it?
Well, I suppose it was super hot last week, and I go through phases of not sleeping very well. And these amazing dreams. And you quite often wake up from a dream, and I'll remember it immediately afterwards. And some are very dark, some are very wacky, some involve my past, some just, are just like so like left field. Is like, oh my God, what was that? And that is part of your brain being accessed and coming up with these weird and wonderful things. Sometimes I wake up in this massive cold sweat, or wake up with a start because you're really scared. And where does that come from? And try to unpick that. Yeah, and I presume that having never really meditated for more than about 10 minutes at any one time, maybe you're 10 hours on your own, you're going to start to unlock and unpick and come up with those thoughts, aren't you?
Yeah, that's it. You're not gaining anything. There's nothing being added. You're stripping away. Everything's being shedded. And you literally do come out there feeling lighter. Like you really come out like even my posture, like
I've
you,
got terrible posture.
yeah, there's tightness. It's loosening up. But on emotions, it's interesting because your job is like basically dealing with people's emotion, right? And you've got all these people who want to climb Everest and they're looking at you like you're the guy I'm trusting to get me up there, and you need to look after me. And you've taken all sorts up there, like Ben Fogle. You've had like incredible characters, Ranulph Fiennes. Like some of these people are extremely capable, right, and strong-minded from the get-go. How do you negotiate around or tailor around each individual person?
That's some segue out of subconscious trains of thought, isn't it? By spending time with them, building relationships, building trust. So Rand, for instance, Rand was lucky enough to work with me for 7 or 8 years. So I got to know him really, really well. And generally, I would like to work with an Everest client for at least a year, 18 months before going to Everest. So I can build a relationship with these individuals. I know what direction they're going to go in, if they're tired or if they're hungry or, what they're going to do emotionally. And you build a trust relationship. And it's a little bit selfish because if you're going to make difficult decisions, I don't necessarily want pushback on that because there's going to be a reason why I made these difficult decisions. And ultimately, my job as a mountain guide is to keep somebody alive. So almost all the decisions we make are based on safety, which is quite relatively binary. So they are relatively simple decisions. But then how we present the outcome of the decision making is really important. Yeah, and some people like Rand Fiennes really reacted well to being shouted at. Other people, if you shouted at them, that's going to have a big negative effect on them. So you got to deal with it in a more subtle way. Some people you got to sort of sow the seed of thought in there, so it becomes their idea rather than my idea. But you can only know how to deal with that. We've almost come full circle, haven't we? With that question about why is it important to travel and go out there and experience adventure. Because you get an understanding about what's important to these other people. You learn how they process things. You learn how they deal with things. You have an inkling about how they will deal with big decisions emotionally, and then you can present these things in the right way. Not so whichever decision that we've made is going to be accepted. Because you want it accepted, because if you say, okay, we're not going to climb Everest, there's a reason why we're not going to climb Everest, because I think it's going to be unsafe. But I need to present it in the right way to cause the minimum amount of anguish and trauma to the individual. And that's simply relationship building, getting to know them. In the same way that you get to know a partner or a work colleague or anybody. It just takes time. It takes exposure with them and experiencing things with them. And it works both ways. They need to learn about me as much as I need to learn about them. And that's a beautiful thing. It really is. That journey of discovery. When you get a new girlfriend or a new partner or boyfriend or whatever, is that road of discovery is often really exciting. Being intoxicating. It's this new adventure. I mean, it feels a little bit familiar because you've been down this journey before, but this journey is a new journey because it's a new person. And it's a little bit similar to that. And I love it. I love trying to unpick what makes these people tick. one of the first questions I always ask my clients is why Everest? Why do you want to climb Everest? I need an understanding about what it is that makes this mountain special for that individual. And that's my starting point.
Is it usually like a similar answer?
No, it could be any number of things.
What sort of things would they say?
Some people just want the accolade. And they're the ones I might struggle with a little bit, but that doesn't necessarily fit with my own values. But, as we keep saying, everybody's an individual. There's a reason why people want to do these things, and it's not my position to cast judgment. Some people like Ben Fogle has thought about it for decades. Another great client, let's just call him Richard. He came into mountaineering, climbing, after a divorce in life, and he stepped away and was looking to an extent something to feel, something different. So we embarked on this journey together, and we done. He's one of my favorite clients. We do this really cool stuff together. And he's a good mate, and we just know we're going to have a great time. And I've loved getting to know him on this journey. Arguably one of my best friends, another Richard. I have a lot of Richards in my portfolio of clients. I'm seeing him this weekend. We're just climbing as mates, and I've shared so much with this guy. That's all intimate stuff that very few people know about, because I feel so comfortable in his presence. And the share has gone both ways. We're almost like therapists for one another, because what we were saying earlier about being transparent and open and sharing in an environment that feels safe, and there's not going to be judgment, and people don't necessarily think ill of you if you're doing weird stuff or dark stuff, or if you've done bad stuff. By sharing, you're just processing it. I know not a great deal, but a little bit about the 12 steps, the sort of road to recovery from various addictions. First and foremost, and I'm going to get the wording wrong, and maybe I should use maybe I shouldn't. Who's a comedian that's he's been ostracized a bit these days? Russell Brand.
Russell Brand, yeah.
Because he struggled with addiction. I read one of his books about addiction. The 12 steps is kind of closeted in like a higher power and stuff like that. It's quite religious based. And he reframes it, because the first step of the 12 steps is you have to admit to yourself that you have an issue. Are you an alcoholic, or are you a drug addict, or whatever. And audience, I'm going to swear, I'm really sorry, but Russell Brand, number one, instead of saying are you an alcoholic, are you fucked? And then number two is you have to admit to yourself that actually you don't no longer want to be an alcoholic. And Brand says, do you want to be unfucked? and goes from there. And I don't know, it's number 4 or number 5, and you have to kind of list like all the stuff that you've done bad in life, like everything. You got to make a raw inventory of what this looks like, and then share it with somebody. So not just keep it to yourself. And this, one of these lovely clients I have, Richard, one of the many Richards, so people won't be able to guess who it is. I've done some of that with him. And this is meant to be a client. These are the journeys that we embark on together. They're so powerful. We're doing such cool stuff with really high consequence. I mean, people die climbing, people die on big mountains, but it's the journey which is so empowering, both to guide and to client. And there are these moments of huge intimacy, where sharing this stuff just feels so natural, because everything is stripped bare. Perhaps a little bit like your meditation. You can be in the arse end of nowhere in Nepal or Bhutan or the Andes, and you're tired and you're cold and you're a little bit scared and you don't quite know what's going to happen next. And it just feels so natural sometimes. I mean, not all the time. And it it's great. I never got to that situation with Rand Fiennes because he's pretty much a closed book. But some of the he's very stoic. And he's like, should be in the Victoria era, to be honest. One of those stiff upper lipped, show no emotion. I bet he never cries on stage. But other clients are entirely different, and it's that beautiful thing of trying to work out how you can draw the best from that relationship. And it's building trust, meaningful trusting relationships, not transparent ones.
Have you ever said no to a client?
I have, a number of times. Very hard. I'm self-employed. I don't know where the next average client's coming from. So when somebody comes along and you go, actually, I don't think we're going to vibe, and that's about the only reason why I say no. Or maybe there's I'm not the cheapest Everest guide out there. I hate to bring it to finance and stuff like that. And I'm not the cheapest. Sometimes can't afford me.
What's it upwards
but that makes it quite easy to say no.
Yeah.
But when somebody can afford my price ticket, and we might have lunch, and then we might spend a couple of days in the Alps, or we might go to Brecon Beacons, and this is all part of that relationship building. Because what we need to do, we need to get on. We need to vibe. And we're all individuals, and there's no hardship when people don't mesh. It's like relationships with boyfriends or girlfriends. You go on a couple of dates and you realise that you're perhaps not totally compatible. It happens. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's like Bob, Frank, Sheila, whatever the names are. I'm really sorry. I don't think. But by this stage, they know this too. I don't think this is going to work out. Listen, allow me to make some introductions. Let me be part of your journey, but from over here. And maybe our values aren't quite aligned, or their why is a turn off for me, or whatever. It doesn't happen very often. As I get older, I think I'm a lot more tolerant of others. But it does happen from time to time, and it's hard, man, because you never know where the next client come from. You don't want to turn down clients, but everybody's going to have a rubbish time if it's like if you're in a toxic relationship. The hardest thing is to step away, but it's the best thing. Exactly the same going.
For people who are thinking, I want to climb Everest,
Do it. It's amazing.
what does it cost to climb Everest for a spectrum of people?
What does it cost to climb Everest? Did you see in the press recently Hilary Dower, the Sherpa that was left for dead on the mountain? It's all over global media. So the team that he was working for, you could buy onto that team. It's a logistical outfit, Himalaya Traverse. I absolutely guarantee they're not in business anymore, because this is how some of the Nepalese operators work. They have a really bad thing, and they just like dissolve and reappear. Their clients were buying into that outfit for $29,000. I mean, 15,000 of that is for the permit. I have no idea how that is financially feasible. You pay peanuts, you get monkeys. It doesn't surprise me at all that expedition was a total farce. It was a total shit show. So I wouldn't recommend paying $29,000, but one can.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, if you want to book on with a reputable mid-range Nepalese outfit, you're looking at maybe $50,000 to be part of a team. If you want to book onto a reputable Western outfit, you're realistically looking at about $70,000. If you want to go one-on-one with a Nepali outfit, you're looking at about $100,000. One-on-one with a Western outfit, maybe 130 to 150. And if you want to go with me, it's upwards of 250. And honestly, the sky's the limit. A good friend of mine, Nepali operator, naming no names, but he's super famous. He charged somebody 1.2 million.
Wow.
Good way you got him to the top.
And is the justification experience?
Yeah, it's experience. I mean, it's a little bit sycophantic. Sometimes people would buy into the name. It's slightly arrogant here. Yeah, I've arguably got the best track record out of any guide that's ever been on that mountain. And that comes as a premium. I mean, I'm not going to be guiding Everest forever. It is dangerous. There's no two ways about it. And one could die there, myself included. And people are buying into that. We've got an awesome reputation, and it's for a reason, because we've got a great track record. No one's got frostbite. No one's ever died, and we do our utmost to look after our clients. We don't guarantee a summit. We can't guarantee safety, but we're going to do our very best for that individual. Show them the best time ever. Come home as friends, having had a great experience with lots of laughs, and fingers crossed, gain a summit.
We've spoken about a lot throughout the whole conversation. Is there anything in particular that we've touched on or maybe haven't spoken about at all that you'd want to finish on?
Well, yeah, I suppose so. I mean, we kind of started this, but haven't really touched upon it. You said at the start, if people might be listening to this that are looking at some way of getting into working in a venture or working in the outdoors, and there's a myriad of ways that one can do that. Hand on heart, I don't think. I'm sure there are ways that one can do it. If anybody out there knows, please let me know. I don't think you're going to become super rich working in the big wide outdoors as a mountain guide or mountain leader or trek leader or surf guide or whatever. But I do not regret for 1 second. The only regret I have is that I did not become a mountain guide sooner, because I absolutely adore what I do. I think it's brilliant to be part of someone's journey, their big ambition, be it climbing the Matterhorn or Mont Blanc or Everest, to take people trekking in Nepal. You come around a corner and you see the wonderment on people's faces, and you are making that happen. It's probably a little bit like being a school teacher and you're unlocking potential in others. I just think it's great. I love the outdoors. I love mountaineering. I love alpine guiding. The only regret is that I didn't do it sooner. Reality, well, I suppose I could have done it a little bit sooner. But then I was carving my own path as a climbing bum, and that's where I gained a lot of my own experience, which I can then impart onto others. So the two do go hand in hand. It's a cliche, isn't it? Find what you love and do that, because it's never going to feel like work. And of course there's going to be days, and I have days in the mountains. It's like, you've got to be kidding me. This sucks. You're tired, or you're wet, or you've got to be up at 1 o'clock in the morning, or you get hit by a storm, or sometimes it does. Anything that can go wrong does go wrong, and obviously you're in this dangerous environment, so you've got to deal with it. But most of the days, I just feel so privileged to be able to do what I do. I don't pinch myself. It's like, this is awesome, and I'm being paid to do it. Yeah, I'm not a millionaire, but we started this, didn't we, by saying that materialistic wealth is hollow. It doesn't give you happiness, or it does, it's just in the moment. Whereas memories made in mountains, they're with you forever. You never grow bored of them. They're not put in the closet. They're put on the wall.
Yeah.
I see them every day. And right now, what I see on the wall keeps the bad energy in the cupboard. It's brilliant. So just find, and it could be anything. If you're an artist, or maybe you want to be an accountant. Maybe you get off on numbers. Do that. Just find your niche that just brings your eyes alive and makes you enthusiastic. And what do you want to talk about when you go down a pub? I love talking about the mountains and experiences and shared experiences, and You know, what I did with Bob when we got lost in the Brecon Beacons, or the day that I dropped my ATC and had to like improvise, or, you know, whatever. You know, find that and do that. That's my advice.
Awesome. Love it. Kenton, thanks a lot for coming on.
Well, no, thanks for coming all this way. It's been a pleasure. Let's do round 2.
Yeah, mate. Loved it. Cheers.
No, thank you.